Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Roberto Macedonio of NTN 24 and from the Oriental Republic of Uruguay, His Excellency Yamandú Orsi.
Hello, good afternoon. We're in New York, the economic capital of the States, or of the world, we can say for many. Here they are the headquarters of the main banks. Here we're in Wall Street, and we're at the best possible framework to speak about economy, which is what we're going to do today. We're going to focus on the strengthening of the economic ties that tie the main economies, and the question that we have today, how can we improve investment in the economic activities and markets? And we take as an example Uruguay, which is a country very attractive for business. And for me, as an NTN 24 reporter, one of the main news channels, it's an honor to be here. And thank you, President of Uruguay, for being here. It's an honor. What has happened since you assumed power several months ago? What are the main points about your national and international policies at economic level? Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. Priority from the national point of view, what we face in an electoral campaign and when we assume government, we can resume in three areas. One of them, economic growth, that translates into development in our country, Uruguay, which is a food provider. It produces food for 30 million inhabitants. I mean, we have 3.5 in this country, so it's an important country. And then we need to grow 2.5%. That would be a great leap forward. And the second goal is to innovate or strengthen with innovation our social protection matrix. We stick out in Latin America. This was a country that at the beginning of the 20th century, at the same time that we took off when we were having a big currents of migrants, it also generated a lot of wealth. That would be the second objective, to increase growth. And then in Latin America, we need to improve. We have to modernize everything that has to do with public security, because everything has changed a lot. Organized crime has changed technology and security services, economic development that cannot be built upon what we've ever been doing. This has to be, requires an innovative approach, knowledge about technology, a social network protection that is not afraid to take off. And then we need tools of public safety, regional or at a regional or international level. This is a country that is born as the rest of the Latin American countries with a targeted as a service provider country. We participated in a confrontation between the Portuguese and the Spanish empires, and then the two strongest nations in South America. So we had to struggle to be admitted into the network of South America. So this integration regional, together with Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina, has to be strengthened and be modernized. So this, we're aiming to achieve this. Governments come and go, and Uruguay is not the same, but we're in a region that contributes to us, but at the same time we need to modernize and make leaps forward. And we need to provide more products sold by Uruguay, the advantage that Uruguay has not only in the region, but also in the rest of the world. For example, at the end of the year, very likely we're going to sign an agreement with the European Commission. Last week, we had an agreement at the Mercosur. We had very concrete agreements, and we also sell a lot of goods to China and Asia, and the United States buys from us. It's a client, very important client for global services. So Uruguay is a country that, given its geographical location, can position itself in the world with some advantages. The Mercosur, what importance does Uruguay has within the Mercosur agreement? In this region in Latin America, there are different dimensions. There are some countries. I'm going to give you an example, Paraguay and Uruguay, within this very important region, which produces food, which is almost a continent by itself. Paraguay and Uruguay have a very articulation role to play. The characteristics, the history of Uruguay as an articulation country amongst forces that are subjected to stress puts us in a position. There are some people that compare us to the situation of Belgium in Europe. We are certain, we're convinced that the integration tool is very important in such an unpredictable world where we live nowadays. So we must have ties with all countries in the Mercosur, and we've done this throughout history. Whichever government, whichever administration is in power. So we've had very similar approaches. And we believe, and we are convinced, that the role that we play as countries, even though we are not of a large size, they say Uruguay is very small. Well, we have a small population, but we have a great potential as a country. So in that sense, we're not too small. So in a world where free trade agreements are signed, but those agreements are shaken by different circumstances. I think that we are convinced that given our geopolitical position and the history of good relations with other countries position us, and we are headed towards a privileged position within a region that is very strong. So this is a region that provides great opportunities. President, we were talking about those lines about your government to generate stability, which is always something positive for economic growth. We have to take into account organized crime that operates in Latin America. We were talking about Cartel Los Soles, which, according to the U.S., is related to the regimen of the administration of Nicolás Maduro. So this is crucial for the economic growth of Latin America. This is a destabilizing element, and this has changed a lot around. We've seen the Los Soles cartel as a terrorist organization. There is no doubt that with all these advancements, steps forward, steps back, and this from independence to today, we as a democratic and Republican country, a defender of human rights, always, what's clear to us, what we should aim for in the case of our country is to achieve minimum agreement levels so that the next step we take can be a meaningful one. History is not supporting this, but there are topics that involve all of us that has to do with forced migrations or what happens stemming from some development or a political system that does not embrace its people, but rather expels them. So we need to find all mechanisms and facilities. So we need to deal with the OAS, and if we can see some agreement, we can aspire for the situation to change. And measures that guarantee freedom, where political parties agree to having democratic elections. So we will never shy away from that commitment. So this is linked to other problems that we have that has to do with organized crime, which is what also happens when a country doesn't offer you a Republican democratic guarantee. It's much more difficult to coordinate a combined response. So Uruguay, in its geographical situation, makes it possible for the influence of Brazilian events to affect our region. So that which is important and we have to target very strongly, we have to avoid falling into this trap. So you were talking about the United States and Europe. Many of the things that happen to us end up over there. So the world has become global, and so has crime. So that confusion or that mix of interest, economical interest, political interest, but also that have to do with crime, forces us to have a much stronger partnership to coordinate security measures in the Mercosur, but also in the historical context, which has been going on for a while. But now we're going to play a much more crucial role than we've ever played before. So now tell us about what's going on with the economy and the development and innovation.
Be prosperous. How can we promote innovation from the Latin American government in the private sector? It's a very broad answer. Well, Uruguay has some advantages which will allow us to work better in that area that we're talking about. Uruguay has, for example, some certainty that allows us to be stronger but not develop other places. For example, even though the government changes, we have a strong judicial, but the microeconomics does not change. But it is a compromise that continues. There are some advancements that have to do with innovation, but also with public works. All the young people in Uruguay has a computer or a laptop for more than 10 years. But there is a plan that each child gets a laptop. And we bet on working arduously with the TICs. It is a country that produces food, and the best thing that we could do is perhaps increase volumes. But we have discovered that through life science and information, that in order to fortify education, we can betterment genetics of animal or even cultivation. We have a plan that's innovative, but that involves all the factors, private and the state. And we have been able to generate a program that's called Innova in Uruguay that has everything that academy research is very joined with the production and private enterprise. And that involves improving or respecting what has already been established and has given us the advantages and the potentiality. But we must be conscious that we continue doing the same thing. That jump that we are planting from growth to potency will not happen. So therefore, we have to be very creative, and we have to promote programs that will allow us to return of scientists and researchers, or perhaps foreign research, and we're working on that, And the other thing is to assure or fortify as a country, like in free trade, port, and investments as examples, continue and improving the mechanism in a way that bureaucracy won't stop us that potential and intentionality as we consider as a country. What is Uruguay innovative way? Thank you for speaking with you. Quickly, tomorrow is your first speech in the UN. That is a great honor for me to represent my country here. What will you be talking about? Can you give us a hint? The person who analyzes our diplomatic Uruguay will determine what will be the points we'll be talking about tomorrow. We are defenders of a global organism that allows us to resolve problems with less of a headaches than what we're currently going through. We are conscious that multilateralism, as it becomes more modernized, will allow us to contain something in situations that sometimes can seem explosive. Also, the convocation, which I respect, the Republican and Democratic government and human rights, is a line that defines us, cultural, and we will defend that. Yeah. So here is the beginning of Concordia. Thank you so much.
Gracias, muy amable. Gracias. Salimos por este lado.